From the Digital Media Center, on the campus of Southern Oregon University in Ashland, Oregon. This is Ramping Up Your English, an educational program for intermediate level English language learners. Here's your host for Ramping Up Your English, John Letts.
Welcome to Ramping Up Your English, an educational support program for intermediate English learners. It's a program for people from all language backgrounds. Ramping Up Your English is also for people of all ages. If you've already passed the beginning stages of learning English and want to reach higher levels of proficiency, this program is designed to help you meet your needs. We take a content-based approach to helping you reach higher levels of English proficiency. Our current thematic unit is animals. This is segment 1 of episode 37. There's a saying in English that it's raining cats and dogs. Now, our last 2 episodes were about cats, and today's show is about dogs. Well, another saying is that dogs are man's best friend. Well, I like to think about the first person who shared the kill of his hunt with a wolf, or maybe it was the other way around. Either way, humans and wolves started a relationship way back in time that has resulted in every variety of dog on earth today. As usual, we have some video clips to share, but first there's some unfinished business from earlier episodes. We shared some idioms about horses in one episode and about cats in another. I asked viewers to share other idioms or sayings about these animals, and I have a couple to share with you today. I forgot about the horse idiom I heard so much as a child. Hold your horses. That's what adults would tell me and my siblings when we were impatient. Just hold your horses. It means to wait patiently. Now, the other idiom has to do with cats, and I can hardly believe I forgot to include it in the previous episode. It has to do with letting or not letting the cat out of the bag. When you're told something to keep secret, you may well be reminded not to let the cat out of the bag. In other words, don't reveal the secret. If you do, you may be accused of letting the cat out of the bag. Now, we have some very powerful instruction in today's program, but I won't tell you what it is now. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too early. We also have some video clips about dogs, but I won't play them right now. You'll just have to hold your horses. I know that not every culture esteems dogs, but you should know that the culture in the United States esteems them very highly. It's hard to find a block in any town or city or farm in the country without dogs. They're at the top of the list for pets people choose. That brings us to some vocabulary as we begin our unit on animals. The word pet means there's a close emotional and often physical relationship between an animal and its owner. Both dogs and cats usually enjoy being petted, having their stomachs rubbed, or other physical connection with its owners. Now, cats seem to fear abandonment when an owner starts packing, and dogs can get downright sad when their owner's away at work for the day. Now, the word domesticated or domestic is similar to pet, but there's nonetheless some differences. A domestic animal is no longer wild. They often depend on humans for the needs they otherwise would meet in their habitat. Their learned behavior is distinct from their natural impulses. Domesticated animals usually have a function in the eyes of their owner. They often produce food or some other tangible product. They sometimes provide very personal services, like a seeing eye dog or a guard dog, yet they may lack that personal relationship which would make them a pet. Cattle, horses, goats, pigs, all of these are commonly domesticated animals. Then there are wild animals. They may or may not have experiences with humans, but they follow their natural instincts. They can be as calm and as peaceful as a deer or as aggressive as lions and tigers or wolverines. We can learn so much from wild animals as they teach us about our natural environment, separate from the heavy influence of humans, as well as how human actions affect our planet. Now, the opposite of wild is tame. So let's review briefly. Do you remember the difference between these kind of animals? Pets, domesticated, and wild? Well, we feature all these kind of animals in this unit. They all can help elevate English proficiency because all have some kind of relationship and experience with animals. Plus, they can illustrate how scientific inquiry can be applied to living things, an example of life science. Now, at the risk of letting the cat out of the bag, I'll tell you that we have a video clip about dogs coming up after this. What's a horse doing on Ramping Up Your English? We're galloping toward a new unit, animals. So we're in the country meeting some horses. Horses are just one of the many animals that will help viewers ramp up their English.
So funny. Our Mr. Cowboy, you loving that?
Horses, boy, I'm getting the flies. You see, horses have to deal with flies. Coming soon to RVTV Voices, a new unit on Ramping Up Your English, an educational support program for intermediate level English learners from all language backgrounds. So how can horses help you improve your English? Watch Ramping Up Your English to find out on channels 15 and 115 in Ashland and channel 182 on Charter Cable in Southern Oregon. Welcome back to Ramping Up Your English. This is segment 2 of episode 37. I promised a video clip about dogs, and here it is. Watch and enjoy. It's hard to believe that the same wolves that shared our ancient ancestors' campfire have changed to be this domesticated animal. But what hasn't changed is that these furry critters, the dogs of today, remain man's best friend. There are still wolves, all right, and they are still wild, but it's also true that all of today's dogs come from wolves. Some dogs still have some of that wolf appearance.
She likes the combing.
Oh, yeah, yes.
But others not so much. This video clip is about those, not the wild wolf, but about the faithful dog. This is one dog rescued from a shelter. It lives in a household with many well cared for dogs, the home of writer Paul Handover and his wife, 2 Oregon residents who have an especially high opinion of dogs.
No, they're very, very special animals.
And this young man here, he came from a couple that couldn't handle a rambunctious puppy and was going to give him up. And he came our way, so he's somewhat of a rescue dog.
Paul Handover advocates taking in rescue dogs.
There's a feeling abroad from some people that not to take a rescue dog because there's something sort of wrong about them, and that's poppycock. Rescue dogs are often much better to have as a pet than taking a puppy.
Especially for older people.
Especially for older people. And the other thing is, there's a sense, it's a subjective emotional position, but there's a sense that rescue dogs know that they've been rescued, and when they're in a loving home, they respond so much to that. I mean, we like to think so. It's very difficult to prove that scientifically, but...
The key, says Handover, is love. Unconditional love.
I would just endorse and amplify the unconditional love. dogs have an ability to demonstrate unconditional love in a way that we humans can at times struggle to really recognise. And showing them unconditional love, loving them for who they are, what they are, is really valuable, and it generates the depth of relationship, which is both important to the dog and then in turn is important to the human owner, the human friend.
Notice there's no arguing. Everyone just waits for their treats. There's no fighting.
Ooh, yum, yum.
You're big. You get another. And another. And Pharaoh gets another one. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? That's it.
Got it.
Paul Handover esteems dogs so much, he's written a book entitled Learning from Dogs.
Leave it.
I'm thinking of training this one here, Brandy, as a service dog, because he's so laid back and calm.
He sure is.
And I have Parkinson's, and I need a little bit of stability sometimes. And he would be perfect. Brandy.
Dogs can be trained to help people in many special ways. Best known, perhaps, are dogs trained as guide dogs for the blind, also called seeing eye dogs. In Southern Oregon, some dogs are trained for people who can't hear, from an organization called Dogs for the Deaf. German shepherds protect people and their possessions. They can be trained as guard dogs. And some dogs are trained as therapy dogs. They help people of all ages cope with emotional trauma or just loneliness. Dogs often form very strong bonds with people fortunate enough to have dogs in their life. It's not surprising that in many countries, including the United States, dogs make up the largest number of pets. It's been pointed out that the word dog, spelled backward, is God. You may be surprised to learn that dogs can also be teachers. That's the theme of another video clip that you'll see soon on Ramping Up Your English. Welcome back to Ramping Up Your English. Our previous episode on cats gave us a chance to share some knowledge about English phonics. We found a multitude of words rhyming with cat, all using the short A sound so common in basic English words, and in syllables for that matter. Let's go a little farther today. The word can has the same A sound as in cat, and we can use the same method as before to find the rhyming words. So the letter an uses the first letter of the alphabet and rhymes just fine with can. There's a quick reminder here that the vowels are A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. These rarely begin a word that rhymes with the word containing a short vowel sound, since the word already has a vowel. Now, the letter A after that one is B, begins a word that rhymes with can, which is ban. Then there's the name Dan. Now let's look at the next letters, E, F, G, and H. E is a vowel and doesn't start a word rhyming with can, but F starts a word fan, a device for moving air, and neither G nor H has a word rhyming with can. Now the letter I is also a vowel and doesn't work, but the letter J works. Jan is a common name. K sounds like it would work with can, but can starts with a C, not the letter K. Now L only works in a computer term way. A LAN is a type of network on a computer. And then the letter M works for man, N works for the name Nan, O doesn't work, P works just fine as pan, something in which you cook food. The letter Q doesn't work with can, but R does for ran, the past tense of run. S doesn't work, but T works with the color tan, and the verb tan, which means to expose yourself to the sun to darken your skin. Tan also means to cure an animal's hide to make leather. Now, out of these letters, only V is a short word rhyming with can. That's van, a type of automobile. I can't think of a rhyming word starting with any other letters. Now, see if you can play around with more of these words that have the short A sound. The easiest to recognize are the short words with a consonant, then a vowel, an A in this case, and then another consonant. Remember, a consonant is a letter that's not a vowel, and the vowels are A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. Now, we've strayed a bit from today's theme of dogs. Dogs have a lot to teach us people, knowledge that goes way back to their wolf roots. We'll hear from someone who has written a book about that knowledge after this.
Is it true that ramping up your English is going to the dogs?
Brandy.
Yes, it is. And cats, horses, rabbits, geese, jaguars, and more. Join us in our new unit on animals. Ramping Up Your English is for intermediate English learners from all language backgrounds and all ages. We take a content-based approach to helping you reach higher levels of English proficiency. Our new thematic unit is animals. This science unit helps viewers advance in language functions that will stretch their English skills and learn a few things from dogs as well.
Openness, trust, faithfulness, loyalty, playfulness, and more. The qualities that we as humans really do need to learn and to have in our lives on a daily basis because they deliver such beautiful rewards.
Ramping Up Your English can be seen on the Ashland Home Network on channels 15 and 115. It's on channel 182 on Charter Cable in the rest of Southern Oregon. Join us for better English and a grand time with animals.
Welcome back to Ramping Up Your English. Yes, our program is going to the dogs, but that may not be a bad thing. This is segment 3 of episode 37. Just a few miles from the TV studios in Ashland where we do this program lives a man from England who has written a book entitled Learning from Dogs. Let's see what we can learn about him and his book in this next video clip.
Meet Paul Handover. He lives in Josephine County, Oregon with his wife Jean. Paul has written a book entitled Learning from Dogs. Here's how we got the idea.
Well, the idea was really put in my mind many years ago when I was still living in England, and I had cause to be speaking to a good friend who by background was a professional psychotherapist, and he mentioned that dogs are creatures of integrity. And this was when I had Pharaoh, my German Shepherd, that's him on the cover of the book, who is still with us but now a very old dog. And I thought, yes, they are creatures of integrity, and that struck me as such an important principle. Then much later on, when I was with Jean and surrounded by, up to 16 dogs at times and living with dogs, we have 9 dogs here, living with them on a day-to-day basis, I realized that there are many, many qualities And a couple of years ago, I started thinking about those qualities: openness, trust, faithfulness, loyalty, playfulness, and more. That the qualities that we as humans really do need to learn and to have in our lives on a daily basis, because they deliver such beautiful rewards.
I asked Paul Handover about his experiences in writing the book.
In 2013, I wrote some draft words, and I repeated some more draft words in 2014, and brought it all together to publish the book last December. And that's it. I'm very pleased to say that the book has been out now for about 8 months.
In his book, Handover mentions that some of the qualities we can learn from dogs date back before written history. The qualities that wolves had, qualities that kept the pack together in harmony and helped them survive. Today's dogs, all descended from these wolves, extend these noble qualities to humans. Paul's dog Pharaoh provided his formative experience with dogs, and then he met Jean, who rescued abused dogs in Mexico. Now they live with a large family of rescued dogs. There's a lot more to his book than I could represent here. I asked Paul how people could get a copy of his book.
My website, learningfromdogs.com, it's possible to have the book, to order the book from the website, either for me to send it to you as a physical book, or to download it as an electronic book, whichever suits the potential customer. 50% of the net proceeds of the sale of the book, and the book is retailing for $15.95, and it cost me a little over $4.30 to print. The net difference is split 50-50 with the local Rogue Valley Humane Society. So there's a direct benefit going to a society that rescues dogs and finds homes for them in the neighbourhood.
He just came into the house, he's never messed the house, he's never chewed anything.
Paul and his wife Jean suggest adopting a dog from a shelter.
Yes, Jean's the one who really stresses this. A lot of people seem to have the idea that when they're thinking of getting their first dog, that rescue dogs are somehow damaged dogs, and that it's much better to get a puppy. That's not the case. In fact, rescue dogs very, very often provide a better pet, in the sense that the rescue dog has often been through the stage where they're wetting the floor, or worse. They're through their puppy stage. They're very, very comfortable with humans, obviously, and in many, many cases they show their gratitude. And of the 9 dogs we have here, 7 are rescue dogs. And I mean, John, you've been looking around at the dogs. I mean, there's not a trace of any, how can I call it? There's not a trace of any negative personality, negative behaviour. That's because they're rescuers. Not the case at all. They're very wonderful, loving dogs. And in a way that's probably a little bit subjective, we think, Jean and I think strongly, that a rescue dog, when they are in a loving home, understands that and shows their gratitude. Terribly subjective, I'm the first to admit.
That's not to say that Paul's against getting a puppy.
This is Cleo, and when I first had Pharaoh, when I was in England, the trainer said to me, when Pharaoh gets old, do yourself a favour, get a puppy, because the puppy will keep the older dog playful, and the elder dog will teach the puppy everything you've taught the elder dog. And in fact, of course, I didn't realise at the time that I'd end up in America. But it's absolutely true. Cleo has a whole range of understandings, and she's not had 5 seconds of training. And somehow it's just, she's inculcated all those commands.
For Paul and Jean, rescuing animals doesn't stop at dogs. Meet a rescue horse.
This is Ben. This is the horse that was abused so badly.
Looks like you've got him back to health, huh?
Oh yeah, he's a lovely animal. He's a lovely animal.
Paul and Jean rescued this horse from an abusive man who let his kids shoot it with a BB gun. Understandably, the horse retreats from men. Paul and Jean maintain that it's love that heals both dogs and horses.
Now, equally, the horses and the dogs, respond to a person coming at them with, love in their hearts and yes. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. This is a treat. After we first had him, there was no way I could have got that close to him. Absolutely no way.
So you've developed trust with him.
Yes.
So, the lesson Paul learned from dogs goes out to horses as well. The way they can go out into the world of people and change our world into one with greater integrity. At least that's the idea in Paul Handover's book, Learning from Dogs. Viewers can learn more about what we have to learn from dogs by visiting his website, learningfromdogs.com.
The book Learning from Dogs is the topic of my other RVTV program, Adventures in Education. I'll include a link to that program on my website, letscreate.org. You'll also find a link to this and all episodes of Ramping Up Your English. This is episode 37. Previously, we discovered some words that rhyme with cat. Let's use the same method with the word dog. Now, dog has three distinct sounds. Og. Let's preserve the last two, og, and change the beginning sound to find rhyming words. Now, we don't have to go far from the beginning of the alphabet. The letter B gives us bog, a wet area of land, and a verb for getting stuck in it. C gives us cog, a tooth in a gear. As with the vowels A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y, E doesn't give us a rhyming word, but the consonant F does. It gives us fog, a low-lying cloud. Now, moving through the alphabet, we stop at H for hog, another word for pig, and another animal. Then J gives us jog, a movement between a walk and a run. Then there's log, that's left of a tree when the branches are removed. And from there, we run out of words unless we include beginning consonant blends like slog, an arduous walk through the mud. Now, English phonics go far beyond the scope of this program. I'm just giving a few starters to help when you're reading. For learning phonics, I recommend the website Starfall. Visit them at starfall.com. You can click on the letter and it will make it sound. I'll put a link of that on my website, letscreate.org. You'll find your homework there, which is to get a book about dogs and see how many words you can recognize and can pronounce. You should also find rhyming words with short A sounds and with the short O sound, as in dog or the word strong. Now, the O can be a little tricky in English, so look at our website for words with which to rhyme. After finding rhyming words, use a dictionary to see the meanings of the words you don't already know. And don't worry about mastering or remembering the meanings unless you find a word that's important to you. All our instruction today will also be found at that website, letscreate.org. You can also watch and even download today's episode, episode 37, on Ramping Up Your English at archive.org/details/roguetv. Click on Ramping Up Your English on the sidebar or my name, John Letts. Watch channels 15 or 115 on the Ashland Home Network or channel 182 on Charter Cable in Southern Oregon for Ramping Up Your English. We're on 8 o'clock on Mondays and 7:30 p.m. on Thursdays. Channels and show times may be different in other areas. I want to thank my energetic and talented crew, RVTV staff, and I want to thank you for watching. See you next time on Ramping Up Your English. I'm John Letts.
You've been watching Ramping Up Your English, a support program for intermediate level English language learners. Learn more. Visit our website at letscreate.org. You can also watch or download today's program at archive.org/details/roguetv. Join us next time on RVTV Voices for Ramping Up Your English.